Long dependent on the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, Africa finds itself crippled by foreign debt and remains a continent of great poverty and inequalities.
As long as we are enthralled to and dominated by debt, I'd even go so far as to say enslaved to debt, there is no attention paid to social affairs like health and education. Can you imagine? We have to sacrifice Congolese children who have to die, who cannot study because they have to pay for the debt. And the international community talks about generosity. Now they are talking about canceling the debt as an act of generosity by controlling the country's resources.
Debt is used to keep countries with natural resources under control. It is used to control countries in the Southern Hemisphere both politically and economically.
Today, we've got less than 5% of the world's population living in the United States, consuming almost 30% of the resources. And roughly half the world is living in poverty, close to starvation, or actually starving. That's a failure. It's not a model. It's not something that can be replicated in Africa or India or Latin America. So it's a failed system. We know that. It's a failed system.
Institutions like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund play a crucial role in the entire history of the debt crisis. In fact, these two institutions, created in 1944, began to lend on a large scale to developing countries in the 60s. They had actually started in the 50s, but the real surge in loans was in the 60s. The roles of the IMF and the World Bank have changed radically since then. Both institutions have become instruments of oppression and control of new sovereign countries in the immense Southern Hemisphere.
The most typical way that economic hitmen work is that we'll identify a country that has resources our corporations covet, like oil, for example, and then arrange a huge loan to that country from the World Bank or one of its sisters. But the money doesn't actually go to the country. Instead, it goes to our own corporations.
Inga, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, is the most powerful dam in Africa. It's also one of the best examples illustrating the workings of the system. Since it was built, the dam has had one problem after another. This dam represents the most emblematic of what we call the white elephants. Monstrous realizations that have only increased the country's foreign debt, with objectives that have nothing to do with human or economic development, but more with investors' pursuit of maximum profit. Today, the Congolese people have to pay for a power station which was not built for them, but to supply energy to the Katanga mines, 2 kilometers away.
What I find appalling is the complicity of the multinationals, of certain countries, of businessmen, and even of scientists who proposed to us this giant machine. But today we have reached a situation where we have to pay back the debt without necessarily having access to electricity. But the main problem that we face when we have financial institutions like the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund, when we debated the construction of the dam, these institutions knew that we weren't going to use all the electricity. Nevertheless, we were made to build this dam because it suited the big multinationals. Today it is the Congolese people, the little people, who pay. So for me, this debt is odious. We should repudiate it, and we should even ask for compensation from all of these companies who brought us equipment that didn't work.
Inga is an example of something that has not worked, but it's also an example of an investment that can work. You've mentioned Ingas 3 and 4. Our interest is seeing that the existing investments in Inga are actually used to generate electricity for the people of DRC. Ultimately, over time, maybe in the distant future, Inga can provide electricity elsewhere, but we're not there as yet. Right now, the priority is getting Inga to work.
The idea was to link the Inga Dam to the Katanga mines, thereby passing electricity through a high-tension line which flies over most of the country. So Katanga could be punished at any time by cutting the interrupter in the lower Congo.
We want electricity in our village. After all, it is ours. Instead, other foreign countries are using it. And we who own the power find ourselves in darkness.
What is happening is that Angola, South Africa, Namibia and Botswana pay the authorities with currencies, while the people of Lower Congo feel less interest.
In this village, like in all other villages, the main difficulty is the electricity supply. And as the dam also has its own problems, it cannot supply electricity in the entire republic. And more particularly in the capital, Kinshasa, which experiences major problems with regard to energy supply. And as you can see, we find wooden posts as they are there, and lines which literally cross the rooftops of houses. With this situation, we risk having problems with electrocution, even house fires.
In a village near the Inga Dam, we witnessed an incident which could have had dramatic consequences.
Everyone knows that electricity contributes to development. When there are no roads, we need them. They can transform farming produce. Electricity would allow us to conserve and package goods. But what is happening today? Produce rots. If we had electricity, we could save our forests. Today we destroy them for firewood, so we lose out twice. We are in debt. Debt has its consequences. Now the forest is being destroyed. Instead of being able to use electricity, we are destroying our forests.
The forests of the Congo Basin cover an area of over 172 million hectares. In a widespread context of corruption and poor governance, despite a moratorium and the forest code imposed by the World Bank in 2002, attempts to reform the wood industry have not yet met with any success in the Democratic Republic of Congo and are endangering the planet's second lung.
Some 70% of the world's poor people live in the countryside and depend completely on the ecosystem. This ecosystem feeds them, houses them, and takes care of them. And when the World Bank finances projects that destroy the ecosystem, this ruins quality of life and even the livelihood and survival of local populations.
Without permission, we decided to try our luck at the steelworks of Maluku. Threatening to call for the intervention of a minister, we're allowed to visit this immense empty factory.
This factory was built to use and consume electricity from the Inga. Yet we knew very well that when they were building this factory, the raw material they were going to use was scrap iron and rust iron gathered in Europe, which is unacceptable given what we know the country's potential in terms of minerals is.
In effect, the situation is ridiculous. Underground, particularly in Katanga, minerals are dug up to be exported 8,000 kilometers away and smelted. They are then used to make steel in the northern countries, to make vehicles and machines. And when these vehicles or machines end up on the scrap heap, they are compacted and shipped in a boat to Matadi in the Congo, which causes the river to rise. This scrap metal is then melted in ovens to create refined steel. It's completely ridiculous.
So Maluku never worked. It was money down the drain, a waste, but not for the multinationals which won. Multinationals sold their technology. It is the Congolese people who are losing out today. And all the wealth is being controlled because of this debt.
So, what is the reasoning of the heads of the World Bank and the IMF? This is what they say. We will make these developing countries used to the funding we provide them for the development and for the daily management of their business. And if we make them reliant on this funding, we thereby obtain a means of influencing them and dictating a certain type of policy.
When Robert McNamara took over at the World Bank, he wanted to do something grandiose. He began by borrowing on the markets in order to be able to lend more and sell loans in the South, where some countries admitted that they were completely incapable of paying them back.
So at some point, we economic hitmen go back and we say, listen, since you can't pay your debts, give us a pound of flesh. Sell your oil real cheap to our oil companies. Or vote with us on the next United Nations vote that's critical to our policies. Or allow us to build a military base on your soil. Things like that. And in the few times when we fail, when we're unable to corrupt presidents, to get them to accept these loans, when we fail, then the jackals go in, and they either overthrow governments or assassinate their leaders. Both Roldos of Ecuador and Torrijos of Panama were assassinated because I was unable to corrupt them. I couldn't get them to accept these conditions.
Thomas Sankara, who condemned the World Bank, the IMF, and lenders in general, is a clear example. There was a coalition of interests against him by the great powers, governments, companies, and international institutions. But who gave the order to assassinate? Who designed the assassination plot? That I don't know. But what is clear is that those who assassinated him knew that they did it to defend certain interests. And in these interests, there were the interests of lenders, that's for sure.